Good morning, my name is Sam, my pronouns are they, them, and welcome to my backyard. So, today is technically Thanksgiving, and we do not celebrate that in our house. It's something my partner and I decided on for many reasons. Obviously, the biggest one being that it celebrates genocide. So, we have not built that into our practices as a family. You can hear my dog behind me. But so instead today she will pretty much spend the entire day playing video games, and I will be doing a 24-hour indigenous readathon for the Native Visibility Readathon. That's all I will be doing today. I am currently in the midst of Love After the End, I believe it is. It is an anthology of speculative fiction by various Two-Spirit and indigiqueer authors. I'm really loving it so far. I'm only like a story and a half in, so I will be doing... Thanks, kid. I will be doing a breakdown of each of those stories. I will start with the first one right now. I don't remember the title off the top of my head, but it was about a teenager falling in love with an AI on the spaceship, and then them escaping together. It was so good. I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. And as of this exact moment, I don't have like a super specific TBR, but I am planning on picking up today and hopefully getting through To Shake a Dragon's Breath. So that's really my only my goals for today is to finish To Shape a Dragon's Breath, and the anthology that I'm reading. So I'm gonna go start making everyone breakfast for the day, and then we can get our reading started. We are going to be going, I believe, I'll be doing like either 8 or 8:30 this morning till 8 or 8:30 tomorrow morning. I will be sleeping because I'm old and crotchety. So let's get that started. Okay, hi, hello. Let's talk about, I got through either 2 or 3 of these stories, so let's kind of talk about them a little bit. I'm gonna do like 45-minute intervals, just kind of going through the anthology, because I want to be able to talk about the stories like individually, because they're really good. The first one is History of the New World. This one was about a queer family, 2 moms and their child. They were supposed to be like taking a shuttle to a new world. One of the mothers was white, the other one was native. That one was really devastating. It was really good because the white mom ended up being like really afraid, and she ended up taking the shuttle to the new world without her partner and her child, who the 2 of them were indigenous, and they were like, we can't abandon our world. So that one was really heartbreaking. It was really good. 5 stars. And then we have The Ark of the Turtle's Back. This one is by Jay Simpson. And this one was about a family of 4 queer. So the government was rounding up indigenous peoples to be used for slave labor on their places, their settlements, there we go, on the moon and Mars. So the indigenous community as a whole, like, kind of came together to escape the planet together. So this one was really wonderful because it definitely showed a lot of like trans love. Our main character, I believe, identified as a trans woman. There were people who were using like them pronouns. they them pronouns. Like, it was just like a house full of trans love. Um, and that was really beautiful, and it talked a lot about persevering for family and like making decisions that might be considered selfish, but still mourning for the loss of like your planet despite making those choices for your family. So that one was also 5 stars. The next one that I am about to start is How to Survive the Apocalypse for Native Girls by Kai Minaj Pyle. So let's go get started. Okay, so let's talk some more about Love After the End. I got through 2 more stories. I got through How to Survive the Apocalypse for Native Girls, and this one is by Kai Monish Pyle. So this one I really enjoyed because it was like a listicle kind of thing, but it talked about a lot about like Two-Spirit people and the abuse that they face, and like just trans people in general in the society, and the ways in which like the government of the nations that have been formed after the apocalypse, or maybe not after the apocalypse, but like throughout the apocalypse, the government that was formed was still like exiling um, trans people and committing violence against them, and how other trans people are really the ones who like stepped in and kind of worked through the history and all of that. So this one was really good. Again, this one's another 5 out of 5. I thought it was really interesting to watch how history is kind of told and kind of manipulated, based on who is telling it. It was ultimately just very interesting. Now, the second story I read is my favorite one so far, and my pronunciation of this is going to be garbage. I'm so sorry in advance. Let me grab the like Undwanika Digon. That's the title. I hope I did my best with that one. And this is about a people who get like red marks on their skin after they hear stories, and then you're able to press on those red marks and they're able to repeat the story back to you verbatim. And it's just like a representation of the value of oral history. These people were all murdered because the government didn't want the people to have access to these oral histories. Um, and it was basically like one child escaped, um, and kind of built a life for themselves, and they had a lover, and then the government, they call them the enforcers, found them and imprisoned, and they spread like their stories around to everyone, and kind of spread the story, spread the value of the people that she came from. And it kind of ends with I am no longer the last of the Undwanika Jingun. I'm really sorry for that pronunciation. I'm trying with the actual breakdown. But that one was my favorite so far. It was really powerful and really beautiful, and I loved every second of it. It was a wonderful story. The next one that we are going on to, ultimately, also, I've read through like 5 or 6 stories so far, and every single one has been 5 stars, and that is not normal for anthologies for me. So the next one is Story for a Bottle by Darcy Little Badger. So I am just gonna keep reading. Okay, hello. It is 1:16 in the afternoon, and I just finished Love After the End, which is an anthology of Two-Spirit and indigiqueer speculative fiction. It is edited by Joshua Whitehead, and I still have 4 more stories to talk about, but I want to talk about the stories that I already read, and tell you what tribe. So Nathan Alder did Abacus, which I gave 5 stars. I really enjoyed that. He is Anishinaabe and Jewish and a member of Lac Des Mille Lacs First Nation. Next we have Gabrielle Castillo Caldron, they, them. They are a two-spirit Micmac. I know I pronounced that wrong. I'm so sorry. Algonquin, Scottish, and French Canadian. Um, let's see. They are currently thriving in Treaty 6 territories. Out of pure respect, I am not going to pronounce this because I could try my hardest and I would fail. Adam Grant is also Two Spirit. Adam Grant wrote History of the New World. Um, they are Two Spirit and they are Cree, Metis, and Danish. Marie Curizato wrote Sea Children, which we have not yet talked about, but I will give it 5 stars because I did love it. Oh, this is a pen name for a disabled LGBTQIA tribally enrolled Cote First Nations Ojibwe woman who lives in Denver, Colorado with her wife and son. And then we have Darcy Little Badger, who wrote Story for a Bottle, which we have not talked about yet, but I'm also giving 5 stars. That one was real scary. That one was messed up. She is a Lipan Apache writer with a PhD in oceanography. That makes a lot of sense. And then we have Guy Monish Pyle, um, who wrote How to Survive the Apocalypse for Native Girls, which we did talk about, and I did give 5 stars because it was fantastic. They are Two Spirit Metis and Bawating, Anishinaabe writer, originally from the Green Bay in Wisconsin. And then we have David A. Robertson, who wrote Eloise, which I'm also giving 5 stars. We haven't talked about it yet. We're going to talk about that one last. David is a member of Norway House Cree Nation, living in Winnipeg. And then we have Jay Simpson, who is an Oji Cree Saluex indigiqueer, whose roots hail from Sepetawea, Kizikose, and Skownan Cree Nations. I don't feel good about any of those pronunciations. I am so sorry if I have brutalized. You know what? Not if. I'm so sorry that I have brutalized names in this. I've looked at a few of the oral breakdowns and my brain kind of gets it and then my mouth is like absolutely not. We're not doing that. Um so this is my own problem. This is my own fault. I am not doing well at this, but I'm trying my very best. And our final author was Nazba Tom, who wrote Nameless, that I'm also giving a 5 stars. That one was also hardcore. It says Dine is a somatic practitioner. They support individuals and groups through a process of embodied transformation using a combination of conversation, breath work, new skills, body work, and gestures. Their work aims to humanize and reconnect us to ourselves, each other, and our land. In between working with individuals and groups, they do their best to capture poems and short stories haunting them at all hours of the day. So, those are all of our authors. I know that that was painful for me to watch me struggle through, but it's important to look at where people come from and remember who these writers actually are as people. We have 4 stories to go through. Our first one is Story for a Bottle by Darcy Little Badger. So this one was really messed up. So it's the premise of someone wrote a letter in a bottle and tossed it into the ocean. And it is this young girl who was at her sister's 14th birthday party and she messed something up, and she went out to the ocean to take a breather, and she saw a canoe and she heard a young child calling for help. So she jumped into the canoe to try and assist. It did not go well for her, at all. She got kidnapped by an AI, basically. It gets a little complicated towards the end because there's an AI, you think it's an AI, you think it's just a voice, but then there's a body at the end. So I don't really know if it's an AI who created its own body, um, or if it's a person who's just 200 plus years old. That's the part where things get a little murky. But she gets kidnapped and brought onto this ship that was named New America. When the apocalypse happened, a bunch of people were like, "No, we're not going to deal with the land. We are just going to build a giant like ship and live on the sea." Over like 200 plus years, they just kind of all died out. So the ship came and kidnapped this person to take care of the ship and fix things and do all of that. And it was really creepy. It was really unsettling. um, our main character was like a really brilliant main character. I think that they did a fantastic job, especially because it was such a short story going over such a long timeline. Like the story was only like it was less than 20 pages, but we went over like a few weeks timeline. So that one was fantastic. And then we have Seed Children by Mari Curizato. So this one was really interesting because our concept was not following people who were like fully like human. They were synth humans. So I feel like they were humans constructed out of like a different kind of biological material or something. I don't know. I don't think understanding like the functionality of these synth humans is really that important. It's more of the fact that they kind of get seen as like a second class citizen, like kind of like an animal. Like you're not human, you just kind of deserve to die by humans because it's like an act against God kind of thing. But it's this synth person. Her name was Nona, and she was in charge of a bunch of synth children, like age like 12 and younger, and she was trying to get them off the planet because the world was ending. All of these stories involve like the world ending or the world having ended. And a bunch of humans came and tried to kill her because her and these young children were like a crime against God. It's kind of that whole story of their escape. So this one was really short. It was like less than 10 pages, but I thought it was really really good. I still gave it 5 stars. It just shows like the compassion of these are just children. Like y'all are sending in a militia to murder a bunch of children. A little too close to home at this current moment in time. It was a good story and it had a good ending and it had a really good character development for being under 10 pages. It was very impressive in a writing standpoint along with a storytelling standpoint. Next one was Nameless by Nazba Tom. This one really interesting to kind of work through because we're following two different people. We're following our first main character, Jennifer, who is like I believe a therapist. And then we are also following Kie. Also, in terms of Kie, there's always an asterisk next to their pronouns. And I'm not sure why that was chosen. Maybe it was like an emphasis on the pronoun scenario, but I thought it was an interesting choice punctuation wise because there wasn't like a footnote anywhere to give any context clues into that scenario. So it's kind of like a guess in my mind. But it's following those two main characters and it kind of goes back and forth. So we're watching Jennifer as she's like kind of spiraling a little bit. She's a therapist and she's working specifically with one patient who is only there because the courts are like, you are required to do 10 sessions of this, and at the end, we'll decide if you're going back to prison or if you're going to like a rehab facility or something like that. And then we're also following Kie, who is like an apprentice for like, it's kind of like a dream work thing, but not really. It's kind of like walking in between the worlds, is kind of how I understand it. They call it traveling, and they are kind of working on their traveling with their mentor at this point. The two people kind of connect at the end, their storylines connect, and I just think it was so interesting in the way that the narrative was kind of woven together. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought that it was really well done in terms of writing and structure. Overall, the story, it really has you kind of sitting within yourself and kind of guessing a little bit at times. And I think that that's a really cool and interesting way to do this kind of story. Well, it couldn't have been more than 20 pages, but like it was a really complex and intricate 15 pages. And I really loved that. So I also gave that one 5 stars. And then our final story was Eloise by David A. Robertson. Eloise, I think, might have been my favorite. Um, so it's kind of like this interactive world called the Gate is a thing in this world where it's like you can live out like a virtual reality, like completely outside of your own existence, and like 5 minutes is the equivalent to like 50 years. So like 5 minutes in our world is like 50 years in this like virtual reality world. And our main character Cassie wakes up and she just keeps having dreams about this one girl, Emma, and like their whole ass life together. Like they met at a coffee shop once and had like one date, and then Emma never called her back. So, but she keeps having like these intense dreams like every single night, living this whole entire life with Emma and like growing old and dying together. And she hears on the radio one day Emma on the radio as patient zero for this application called The Gate. Um, so then she freaks out and she's like, "What? Is this why I've been having this dream? I need to go find her." Um, and I think that the most interesting part of this story is how complicated it got, but you're just sitting there and you're like, you are living out this entire life virtually with this girl you met once when you could have just called her. It's just like thinking about the motivations of Emma, because we don't follow Emma as a character, we follow Cassie. Cassie finds out that Emma gets into this program that is also from the Gate, but it's basically like makes you forget like a specific person that you're trying to forget. And Cassie's just kind of like, really? You would rather forget everything than just call me? So this was a really well told story, but I think that like the audacity of the story is what kind of pushes it over to that 5 stars for me, of like this is like the most extreme case of like a lack of communication that I've ever seen in my entire life. And it's fucking hilarious. So yeah, that is Love After the End by various Two-Spirit and indigiqueer authors. This is the first anthology of my entire life that I've given every single story 5 stars. Perfect. It was amazing. I would absolutely recommend that you pick this up. It's totally worth it. It's less than 200 pages. It's totally worth it. Next one I will be starting is To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Moniquill Blackgoose. This author is Sikonke Wampanoag tribe and a lineal descendant of Ozamequin Mazasot. I feel like I'm kind of saying some of these words with like Spanish in the back of my mind because I took like 5 years of Spanish and I really need to stop that. So I think that's kind of where a root of a lot of my inability to say things correctly is coming from. This book is over 500 pages. It's a chunky one, but I am so excited to get started with this. So I will keep everyone up to date as I go and read through this, but I'm not going to talk about this one like super in depth, because if you are interested, I am doing a full annotation and a full in-depth conversation and read through of this book for a different video of a series that I am hoping to start of sapphic fantasy and sapphic romantasy. So that's where we're at for now. I will talk to everyone in a little while. Okay, good morning, y'all. Um, so it is currently Friday the 24th. I'm filming my final wrap up at noon. And this is technically for like the 24-hour readathon that I did for Thanksgiving. Let me just say that I started reading at 8:30 in the morning and I did not stop reading at all until about 12:30 p.m. So, cheers to me. So, I feel like not only did I read some amazing books, but I also feel like I kind of pulled myself out of a reading slump a little bit thanks to these amazing indigenous authors. I know that we already talked a lot about Love After the End, which is an anthology of Two-Spirit and indigiqueer speculative fiction edited by Joshua Whitehead. Um, I loved this. I gave every single story in this book 5 stars. That never happens for anthologies. I am so beyond happy with that anthology, and I will recommend it to everyone going forward. Next, I got a little over 200 pages in To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Moniquill Blackgoose. I am obsessed with this book. I am going to talk about it a little bit here, but if you are interested in seeing like a whole breakdown of this will be the first book that I cover in my new series about sapphic fantasy and sapphic romantasy, as an attempt to try and replace some of the books that childhood me loved and was obsessed with that do not align with my values anymore. Because I'm an adult now. I am almost 25 years old, and I have thoughts and opinions on the world that I did not have when I was 16 and reading these books. So, we are going to be doing a very, very long series regarding these. And this is going to be book number 1. So this is a sapphic YA fantasy. I don't think there are going to be any spoilers in what I'm telling you because I'm only a little over 200 pages in. And honestly, when it comes to fantasy, like, that is mostly world building at this point, especially because this is the first book in a series. So obviously there's going to be like so much world building, and there's so much world building. I feel like I am still like deep in the midst of world building. So we are following a young girl. Well, she's not a young girl. I'm sorry, that's rude. She is a woman. Her society, like her community, does treat her as a woman. But I believe she is only 15 years old, and she is from Moscopog, and I believe her name is Anna Koss. They did a like phonetic breakdown of it, but I haven't been able to find it. It was like towards the beginning. I haven't been able to. I don't remember if it's Anakos or Anakus, but I know that it's not how my brain would like think to pronounce it at first. So we are following her, and one day she is collecting, I believe, mussels when she spots a dragon. And a dragon has not been found in her community for over 200 years. So she ends up going up to the temple where the dragon was to give thanks to the gods for the vision, and instead she finds a dragon egg. Now, this community has very specific ways that they handle dragon eggs, and it all revolves around respect and community and love and just very beautiful things. But sadly, this world is run by settler colonialism, and the English are the ones who pretty much run everything. And her brother comes back from working in an English society, and he's like, no, you need to register your dragon. You need to go to school, because if you don't if they don't find you to be like competent in this something called Skiltcraft, um, then they will kill your dragon because they find you not worthy enough, and they look at dragons kind of like dogs and not like our community does as like a beautiful thing. So she ends up going to that school to learn this craft for the safety of her dragon, but also for the safety of the community, because dragons are very dangerous, and there is an incident with her dragon as it is very young and it's like doesn't know what's going on. It's just a baby. And some of the traditional ways that her community worked with dragons have been lost over time, over the 200 years. So this is kind of like her last-ditch effort for the safety of herself, her dragon, and her community. Well, she gets there and she is thrown into culture shock. These people are awful to her. They act like, first of all, they're like super racist. Second of all, they are incredibly rude, and they think that she is a savage who can't read, write, like doesn't even know what like a pump is for the bathroom for like water. Um like all of that kind of stuff. So they don't think that she knows basic skills, but then they always have the expectation that she should know what's going on, like in the classroom, and what she needs to provide and what she needs to be doing. So she's not smart enough to like do basic human necessities that of course, she is showing that she knows how to do. But, you know, these little teeny tiny little speckles of like societal expectation, those are expected of her to know. And she's just like, what is going on? That's kind of where we're at right now. We have briefly met who I believe is going to be the sapphic love interest, and I am obsessed with her. Her name is Liberty, and she is a 16-year-old Black woman who is an indentured servant at the school that she is currently attending. They are starting to get closer. They are very cute. So she is starting to befriend a boy named Sanders, and he is pretty much a like hardcore artistic coded character. I'm obsessed with him. He is fantastic. Well, there are two other characters that she's becoming friends with. I believe one of them, her name is Margaret. They're having a hard time right now because she's doing like hardcore microaggressions. Margaret's doing hardcore microaggressions, so they are currently not on good terms, but I can see them becoming on good terms and Margaret learning to like be a half decent person and like step outside of the societal norms that she's kind of been trained to be in. I'm sorry, her name's not Margaret, it's Marta. I see sort of like a vague redemption arc, I think, in like a, oh my god, I was being a horrible person, how could I have said such things, kind of vibe, you know? And then she is also becoming friends with Theode. Theode is another indigenous person from another community, a community that her father came from, and we find out that both of his parents were murdered, and he is not supposed to be a Dragoneer, but he is by accident, and it was a whole big thing. So he's very like standoffish at first, and he's like, I don't want to be anywhere near you. I want to be like the perfect English person. I want to cause no problems. And she just ends up being like, yo, please, like we are in a very similar boat, like let's just be friends. And that relationship is starting to bud as well. So I feel like at this point we have like our core group that is pretty standard for a YA fantasy, like a YA dystopian, all of that fun stuff. Honestly, this is just going really well. The fact that I have sat here, let's see, we're already 12 minutes into this, and I could still continue talking about this, and I am less than 50% of the way through this thing. So that really says a lot. It's well written. The author does really interesting things with the chapter titles. I'm kind of obsessed with it. There are a couple of them who like they end off the chapter before with a statement, and then they start the chapter title as like the next thing. I think it's a really interesting way to play with the chapter titles, and also the chapters are super short. Oh my god, I love an accessible author who doesn't do like 20, 30, 40 page chapters. You know, a big shade on authors who do like 40-page chapters. That feels daunting. I don't know what it is, but it makes me feel like I don't have the chance to like stop and take a break. Like if I want to go get a drink, if I want to go take a snacky snack, you know, like I know that's kind of irrational and that you can put down a book at any point, but it feels wrong to put it down not at the start of a new chapter, you know? So, accessibility for my brain cells that makes me want to continue to read because I don't feel overwhelmed by the concept of starting another chapter. Oh my god. I love this. I'm obsessed with it. I cannot wait to continue to talk about it, and I will be continuing to talk about it. And I will be continuing to annotate, and I will be continuing to write about this, and I can already tell that I'm going to continue on with the series. So, that's where we are ending off with our 24-hour readathon for, oh my god, I don't even know what I want to call yesterday. I guess like an anti-Thanksgiving. I know that there are quite a few indigenous people who are referring to it as a day of mourning, and I totally respect that. I don't know if I particularly have the right to call it a day of mourning, um, so I'm just kind of calling it like a day of education, and a day of like lifting up indigenous voices, I guess. I don't really know what to call it, but I'm really glad that I turned yesterday into a day of education and like joy in indigenous stories and listening to indigenous voices instead of just making it like just another day that I was salty about. And off with that, I hope everyone has been reading indigenous books this month. We expect the breakdown of this book to be coming out soon, and I will be walking through a bunch of the other indigenous books that I have been reading this month at the end of this month or maybe like early next month. So that's where we're at. I will see y'all next time, and I hope you guys are having the most fantastic beginning of the winter season.